We've been told our whole lives to eat our fruits and vegetables. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. We picture a crisp, fresh apple plucked straight from the tree, practically vibrating with vitamins. But what if I told you that the apple you picked in the supermarket this morning might actually be a year old? That the fruit that you're actually eating is actually a genetically modified candy bar that blocks your fullness hormones, coats your organs in a sugar glaze, and is biologically designed in nature to make you put on fat. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking down the ultimate health halo food. We're talking about fruit. Why it's designed completely different than it used to be, and why your body is begging for a steak instead. Let's start with the produce section. They call it fresh fruit, but that's a complete lie, because that fruit you picked up in the supermarket was harvested 9 to 14 months ago, most likely. And like I said in another video, this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's standard industry practice. They harvest the fruit way before it's ripened. Then they throw it into cold storage with low oxygen and high carbon dioxide to slow down the natural ripening process, because otherwise it would ripen too fast. So they pick it before it's vine ripened, basically. And then what they do is they pump it with a compound called 1-MCP to extend its shelf life. And if you want to look at another fruit, let's take bananas, for example. They are picked solid grain, shipped to massive warehouses, packed into cold rooms, and pumped full of ethylene gas for a week to forcefully kickstart the ripening process so that they can turn yellow just in time for the supermarket. So these fruits are picked early and not allowed to vine ripen, so they're less fresh produce and more biochemically maintained produce. So that's what you're eating, basically. But then you might say, oh, but eat fruit for the vitamins. Studies show that from 7 days in post-harvest storage, that fruit loses up to 77% of the vitamin C. Antioxidant activity in apples, for example, starts to deteriorate and can completely plummet after just 3 months. By the time the apple makes it into your kitchen, okay, after the year it's gone by, the antioxidant capacity has pretty much plummeted. And then you might say, what about fibre though? The fibre in fruits, like the pectin fibre. But you see, if fibre is so important, then why do we lack the enzyme for breaking it down in the first place? Instead, what fibre does is it binds the nutrients in the foods that you're eating and blocks it and prevents it from breaking it down, so you don't absorb the nutrients. And we talked about that. Check out my video on fibre for more details on that. Plus, fructose is a major FODMAP, meaning it ferments in your digestive tract, causing bloating and gut distress. On a personal note, that when I had fruit with the meat, okay, I had digestive issues, and then when I cut out the fruit and just had meat, then my digestive health improved significantly. So I had a lot of like bloating and all. Let's look at this from an evolutionary perspective. For the vast majority of human existence, the Ice Age happened, and so a lot of the plants were frozen over during this process, so you wouldn't have been able to eat them. And people might say, oh, but that's in colder climates. What about in warmer climates? But even in warmer climates, like Africa, like I talked about before, the Hadza, for example, that even to this day, that they use stuff like berries and tubers as backup foods. So even they use berries as backup foods. So that's not even the main fuel source. When berries were available, so berries weren't even available all year round, even in Africa. And historically, fruit was for a very brief amount of time, seasonal occurrence at the end of summer. Why? Because fruit was a fattening tool. Bears gorge on berries to pack on fat for the winter. Fish like the tambagi and pacu wait under the trees for fruit to fall in the Amazon River so they can gorge and fatten up. When you eat fruit every day, you're basically saying winter is coming. Pack on fat. The animal-based people push back and say, oh, but it's okay to have fruit and meat. You don't get fat. I don't get fat, someone might say, when I eat fruit and meat together. This goes back to the whole thing that we were talking about before about the Randle cycle, that it's a cross-inhibition of fat and carbohydrates. So when you overload your liver with fruit sugar, okay, year-round, if you're going to be doing year-round, then it's going to convert it into triglycerides. That can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And like, just because you don't see the fat and you're walking around with a six-pack perhaps, there's a thing called TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. And just because you look thin on the outside, you're causing problems on the inside. Even if you work out 3 times a week or 5 times a week and work off that, you're still doing massive cellular damage. Fructose binds to proteins in a process known as glycation. We'll get more into that in a few minutes. The fructose spikes your insulin, and that insulin spike blocks leptin, the hormone that tells your brain that you're full, basically. For example, like you eat a massive meal, okay? If you eat a bit of fruit afterwards, then you're actually hungry again because it's blocking this fullness hormone. Here is the catch, okay? So nowadays, we live in climate-controlled environments. So that harsh winter never comes. There's no harsh winters now because we've got climate-controlled environments. We don't freeze and we don't have famines, etc. Now, if you're doing that nowadays, now you're basically prepping yourself for a harsh winter that never comes. Because you're not suffering from these harsh winters, okay? You're not getting rid of this fat because you would have worked that off from the famines and the harsh cold climates. You would have worked off that. But because you're not having that nowadays, then, and because we're living in these climate-controlled environments nowadays, then you don't need it. When you eat fruit every day, you're signaling to your body or put on fat. And what is that sugar doing inside your body? It's highly reactive. That fructose binds to proteins, okay, through a process known as glycation. So it binds to those proteins and makes those proteins not work well or not work at all. Your internal proteins get a sugar coating that would make a supermarket donut jealous. Caramelizes your insides, cross-linking your collagen, leading to premature aging, stiffening of joints, and arterial damage. The medical field knows how damaging this is, which is why we have specific blood monitors like glycated albumin and fructosamine, just to test how bad you're actually coating your internal organs with this sugar over a 2 or 3 week period. And they might not show up on certain tests like the HbA1c tests. That's not a great test because, see, that's insensitive to fructose and galactose, the HbA1c test, which I talked about before. And fructose, again, is more glycating in the petri dish when you look at it than glucose even. But it leaves the blood quickly. That's because you don't want it. You don't want the fructose because it's very glycating. So when people are recommending eating fruit and say, oh, it's not too glycating, but your body's trying to actively get it out of the body. And if we're talking about cellular health, then we have to talk about the Warburg effect. Nobel Prize winner Otto Warburg discovered that cancer cells primarily fuel their rapid growth through the fermentation of glucose. And fruit nowadays is a lot different than it used to be because they've crossbred them. Like if you look at fruits from before, like the banana, for example, used to have like toxic seeds in them and very little fruit flesh. Humans bred it over years to be selectively bred so that the seedless, and it's like a candy bar now nearly. Certain berries, like let's say blueberries, for example, like those big ones that you see in the supermarket now, they've been hybridized to be bigger like that. Berries in nature are generally small. Even worse, they contain a compound called pterostildin. If you are on blood thinners or cholesterol lowering medication, this can interact, this compound, with those medications and cause serious issues. Plants do not want you to eat their seeds. They load their skins and seeds with anti-nutrients like oxalates, which are microscopic, razor-sharp crystals that accumulate in your joints and kidneys. And because in supermarkets, fruit is plucked off the tree early, so when it's still green, like a banana for example, so it's picked early, so it doesn't naturally ripen, and so it doesn't get a chance to lower its defensiveness, which means that the toxic chemicals are still in it, because you didn't allow the plant to lower its toxic chemicals because it was picked early. It was picked when it was still green. So that supermarket fruit is going to be higher in anti-nutrients compared to if you let it naturally vine ripen. The bottom line is this: the fruit that you buy in the supermarket is not a natural seasonal treat. It is a chemically preserved, genetically hybridized, nutrient depleted fructose bomb designed to make animals fat. If you want sustained energy without the blood sugar crashes, then drop the year-old apples and stick to meat. If you found this video helpful, then hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below, how long has it been since you ditched fruit? And I'll see you in the next video.